So in 1983, Leatherman starts with the PST, and this personal survival tool actually starts a whole company that is now a $200 million or so company today. But just recently, we have been seeing a huge change from what Tim Leatherman actually established in the early days of Leatherman. So recently, we have been seeing tools like the Leatherman Crunch disappear. We have seen the Leatherman OHT disappear. We have seen the Juice line disappear, and now we're seeing even further tools disappear from the lineup. So what is going on? Well, this is my theory that in the beginning, Tim Leatherman actually designed in the early years of the company five different designations or tools that he wanted to make. So one of the first ones and one of the most popular was actually the PST. And the PST was so popular because it essentially captured that market of the 4-inch multi-tool. And to this day, that seems to be where most people want their multi-tool. They want it only about that length, and that is like the perfect sweet spot in the market for multi-tools. So we have things like the PST, we've got the PST2 with the scissors, and then pretty close to that same size is actually the Leatherman Pulse, which actually had some locking tools. And then we got things like the Fuse and the Kick. And then we got the Leatherman Wave. And then even to this day, almost Leatherman's mid-size market, but it's really still in that 4-inch frame, is like the Rev and the Sidekick and the Wingman. And those are essentially, it seems like Leatherman is trying to almost use them as the middle market in between a keychain and your regular size tool, but they're still in that 4-inch frame. And then of course we have the Leatherman Arc, which just came out. And then you do have the Leatherman Bond and the Curl, all in that pretty much 4-inch frame. So the majority of Leatherman tools are in the same frame size as the original multi-tool, that 4-inch frame. And that seems like where Leatherman says that's where the money is. And so a lot of times when you see a new tool it's in that frame size because that's like the perfect spot where most people say that's perfect for my pocket size. It's not too small. It's not too big. It's exactly where I want it. Now, one of the other tools that Tim Leatherman came out with fairly soon was he said there's probably a market for a smaller tool set. So not just a PST, but why don't we do this? Why don't we make a Leatherman Mini for those people who want a full set of pliers, but want it in a very much more EDC pocketable size. And I think that's before EDC was really much of a thing, but he still understood that people might want a smaller tool set. So he made the Leatherman Mini, and it had a couple inside tools. It had the knife and then the screwdriver. And then of course it had the bottle opener and the can opener as well. But it was a very minimalistic design, but yet you could still use the pliers, and it was pretty much still a full-size frame option once you unfolded it. So you do have, again, very small tools once you take them out, but again, very small frame size. So Leatherman goes on from the style, or the Leatherman Mini rather, and then they make things like the Leatherman Leap. Unfortunately, they made this for kids, and then it sort of bombed, but they still made it in the small frame size. They made things like the Freestyle in that smaller frame size. And then, of course, they made the Juice, which probably was the most popular in that smaller frame size. So with the Juice, I think the issue that perhaps finally killed it was that it did have a smaller set of pliers, and the pliers were not near as durable or as heavy duty as the Leatherman Mini. So you can definitely see a difference in the quality of the pliers right there A little bit of difference. The juice head was a little bit thinner. And so I think that's what eventually perhaps was its downfall. And then Leatherman just failed to upgrade the frame. And I think kept the tool beyond its life limit. So I think people were ready for something maybe in the same size, but a little different. And Leatherman decided to pull the plug. Now, also fairly early on, Tim Leatherman makes the Micra. And so here's a small keychain scissor-based multi-tool. And it has several tools that you all know and love today. But unfortunately, even though this is one of Tim Leatherman's, I think this is his longest lasting multi-tool, unfortunately, it is now $50 today, which is just pretty outrageous considering what it is. That's a keychain multi-tool, but that's where we are. And then, of course, Leatherman went on and they made several other multi-tools. They came out with the Squirt line. This is the Specialized Electricians one. But they came out with a scissor and a plier-based squirt, and that was also pretty good keychain multi-tool. And then today, maybe this is still made the style PS, but this is sort of what's left at Leatherman is the style, although I don't think it's in stock at this time, but the Micra is one of the few remaining ones. So that was the keychain. So you originally had this keychain. You had a more middle, you had a tiny bit bigger than a keychain, and then you had the mid-size. So you pretty much had the 4-inch, like the 3-inch, the 2-inch, and then Tim Leatherman also came out with the Super Tool eventually. And there have been several different versions of this over the years, but this is one of the first ones. And here's the Super Tool right here as, again, one of its more original iterations. There is the Leatherman Core as well, which is essentially has the same implements. And again, they change over time a little bit, the Leatherman 200 and so forth. But so here we go. And then its modern version, again, is the Leatherman Super Tool 300, again, with replaceable cutters. But again, you have essentially the same tool set that has remained the same over the years. So this one right here has basically the same tool set as the original, just a couple minor changes. So I did add a pocket clip to mine. I'll talk about that in another video. And then of course we can't leave behind the Leatherman Surge, and that has been around, and of course that's like a Leatherman Wave with all these outside implements and one of Leatherman's most loved multi-tools. So we have this heavy duty lineup, and then we could talk about there's several versions of the Leatherman Super Tool 300. There's the EOD and another version as well. But not only that, but Tim Leatherman also came out with more specialized multi-tools. So not only did, again, he have the keychain, he had sort of like just above the Mini, he had the 4-inch frame, he had the large frame, but then Tim Leatherman also came out with specialty multi-tools as well. And these have sort of been a staple at Leatherman for years. And so we have things like the Leatherman Crunch right here. There we go. Got it in. And so this just recently, unfortunately, was discontinued. And so this tool is no longer with us, but it came in a very small package. Very small package. And then you could take this out, and there was a 1/4-inch bit driver, several tools inside as well. Not only that, but Tim Leatherman also came out with the Flare, which was a picnic multi-tool. Now, this is not the Leatherman. This is a copy of a Leatherman. This is a 14-in-1 emergency survival tool you can find online, which is, I think, about $20 or so. But it's a copy of the Leatherman Flare. And the Leatherman Flare is so expensive, I don't think I'll ever really use it that much. And so I thought a copy would probably be enough for my collection, but we'll see. I may pick up the Flare in the future, an original one. But anyway, so this was, again, a more specialty tool, like a picnic multi-tool. But again, it never really caught on, nothing like the Wave has or the Rebar and some of the other standard tools. And again, the Rebar is in that lineup of the 4-inch. There's so many tools we could put in the 4-inch lineup. but this is more of a specialty tool in that same frame size. But not only that, but we have things like the OHT, the one-hand opening pliers right here. And then this had, again, more of a specialized tool set. Again, that's been discontinued. It just never seemed to catch on either. And what we have left at Leatherman are some other more specialized tools like the Leatherman Signal. And this one right here is more for outdoor activities. And then we do have the Leatherman Mutt. That is more of a specialized multi-tool as well for firearm enthusiasts. And this one right here has risen in price, so it's now over the $200 mark, I believe, $220 or so. So this is sort of what is left. So what did Tim Leatherman see? What did he envision? Well, again, I think he envisioned, again, as I've mentioned over and over, keychain, sort of a mid-size between keychain and the regular size, the Leatherman PST, the 4-inch frame, and then that super tool, that larger, heavier duty, more of a ranch, farm style, tradesman style tool. And then, of course, he made several specialty tools as well. Well, what it seems like is happening, especially with the abandoning of the crunch, is that Leatherman is shifting away from the specialty tools. It's shifting away mostly from the keychain tools. So we see a lot of these leaving the Leatherman store, just the micro pretty much, I think, in stock at this time of the keychain segment. And then we've seen the total abandonment of this segment as well, the sort of middle of the road segment. And so it seems like Leatherman is interested in the 4-inch frame size, your Leatherman Wave, and then essentially your Leatherman Surge frame size. So it seems like these are the two segments that they are focused on. And really for the last several years, it's been the 4-inch frame size, which I guess, again, it makes sense. So we've had the Bond come out, we've had the Curl come out, and then most recently, we've had the Leatherman Arc come out. And these have all been in that 4-inch frame size where I think Leatherman, has the idea that we can make the most money there. And that's just what they've decided, to hit that sweet spot in the market where they can get the most money for what they're making. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It is a little disappointing because I like more flavors from Leatherman. They have in the past, had such a full lineup with a lot of their specialty tools. And again, you still can get the Mutt, but I do see this as probably disappearing in the future because I think Leatherman is trying to trim the excess and really become a lean machine to some extent. I think making products in America is almost impossible these days. And so Leatherman, to sustain that as their pretty much ultimate dream or their main tenet of their company, is trying to cut and just basically make the tools that people want the most. So I hope in the future that does mean if they're cutting legacy tools like the Crunch, at least perhaps in the future, maybe we'll see tools like the Leatherman Surge, an updated version. Perhaps we'll see an updated version of the Leatherman Super Tool 300, which would be neat as well. I would like to see some variation in that perhaps as well, an updated version. And maybe, since they are hanging on to the Micra, maybe we'll see eventually something come back to the keychain segment, because I think after the 4-inch in the larger frame, I think the keychain does still have some sales volume there. But I think Leatherman may rethink that, and perhaps eventually they will come out with something else for the keychain market, I hope. Now, I think this middle of the road segment is pretty much gone for the foreseeable future. I don't see Leatherman as returning back to that, but perhaps I'll be surprised. I hope so. And the specialized segment, Maybe perhaps we'll see something come out every 5-10 years or so, but I don't think that will be Leatherman's main focus at all. Now, Tim Leatherman did years ago give a talk in South Africa, you can find it on YouTube, where he talked about perhaps a new Leatherman with a laser or an emergency beacon. So Leatherman obviously is considering all kinds of futuristic ideas, so love to see what they come out with next. But if I was to bet on it, which I don't bet, but if I was to tell you what I think it will probably be some more in the 4-inch or again, the heavy duty segment. All right, let me know what you think in the thoughts below, in the comments below, and I will enjoy reading them.